Good day. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Douglas Harder, and in this topic we're going to look at a new technique for memorizing Morse code. This technique uses word association. However, it's going to use the shape of the characters. Consequently, it will allow you to use your visual cortex. In this first talk, we're going to look at just the alphabet. However, this is followed by a second talk that looks at numbers, punctuation, and other symbols, followed by a third talk on other aspects of Morse code. A PDF is linked to in the comments. Now, some background. Morse code was first developed in the 1830s. It was standardized in 1865 at the International Telegraphy Conference in Paris. It still does have applications today. For example, in any environment where there's a significant amount of noise or interference, or if you wish to maintain radio silence in communications. Now, other techniques require cognitive analysis of memorized words or phrases. My idea is to use the visual processing center of the brain. Therefore, find an associated word or phrase where short letters represent dots and taller letters represent dashes. Capital letters are also tall, but they will only be used with proper names where they will also represent dashes. What's nice is that I would believe that the processing is occurring in your visual cortex, which is significantly faster. Therefore, I went ahead with Vim, Moby's list of words, and regular expressions. Here's what I found. Now, I will be discussing these, and then I will carry on with numbers and punctuation and other symbols. However, in this first talk, we'll just look at the alphabet. Now, Morse code for A is a dot followed by a dash. Well, you can remember this with the word at. A short letter, A, followed by a tall letter, T. Similarly, bean, dash dot dot dot, can be used to remember the Morse code for B, a tall letter followed by 3 short letters. Now, I actually think of Mr. Bean simply because I find Rowan Atkinson to be quite funny. For C, I think of Kate Blanchett. Kate is a proper name, therefore the C is capitalized, and therefore it satisfies our requirements. For D, I think of damn. For E, I just think of the letter E, such as in the exponential E. For F, well, I can't start with an F because it's tall, so therefore I think of a French cafe. For G, again, I can't find something which starts with G, so I think of age, as in age of dinosaurs. Again, a proper name, but only if associated with a term such as age of dinosaurs or age of enlightenment. For H, I think of the word heirs. Now, the H is silent, so we just have 4 dots. For I, there's in. For J, this one's hard. This is the hardest of the lot. I just think of OJJJ. It's not the best. If you can come up with something better, let me know. For K, Kit Kat is actually quite appropriate. Either kit or cat works quite nicely to remember the dot dash of the Morse code for the letter K. For L, I remember the first word of the song Greensleeves, alas. However, there are others. For M, I think of the year 2000. In Roman numerals, 2000 is represented by capital M, therefore 2 dashes. For N, I think of the first James Bond movie, Dr. No. No here is a surname, and therefore the N is capitalized, giving us the dash dot. For O, I think of the abbreviation for the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP. However, if you haven't already memorized O from the ubiquitous SOS, you can always remember off. For P, well, we're going to be using Android devices or perhaps an iPod to train, so you can think of apps for P. For Q, there's plaque, using just the first 4 letters. For R, there's rye whiskey. For S, you can think of sax. For T, you can think of Mr. T, or even just the letter itself. For U, I use umpire, ump, as in umpire, and this is very appropriate because for V, I use vamp, as in vampire. For W, I use the interrogative pronoun Y. dot dash dash. For X, I think of the word foxy. You can either remember a fox or, if you wish, Samantha Fox. For Y, I think of yell. And for Z, I think of the Tzu Empire in China. If that doesn't work for you, you can always think of cheese whiz. There's enough Z's in there to help you remember that this is the mnemonic for Z. So, those are the letters of the alphabet. In the next talk, I will discuss numbers, punctuation, and symbols. So I've described this novel technique for remembering Morse code, where we associate each letter with a word, or perhaps a phrase or abbreviation. Short letters represent dots, tall letters and capital letters represent dashes. We've looked at the alphabet. A PDF is linked to in the comments. And next we're going to look at numbers, punctuation, and symbols. These are my references. Thanks for listening. Have a good day. Cheers.